The doctor is in and she's seeing new patients all across Lumia Island whether they want to or not. Cathy is the newest addition to Eternal Return Black Survival, and she is one of the, I feel like I say this every time, she is one of the most unique characters ever added to the game. Cathy is an assassin with very good dueling capabilities as well, and she comes with some unique mechanics in the form of some self-healing and some team healing as well. Now let's get right into the first build I want to talk about today. This is the build that I've had the best success with and is my favorite build so far. The core of your build is going to be a crit focus with the weapon of choice being Vibroblade. Vibroblade is the standard weapon for crit dagger builds as it doesn't have any ENAD and it just has high attack power with decent attack speed and a little bit of movement speed. Unlike the alternatives of Karnwin and Mount Slicer, Vibroblade, it synergizes very well with crit pieces, and since Cathy's kit has a lot of payoff for doing critical hits, this is a very good weapon for Cathy. Now as for the rest of the build, you're going to be running Optical Camouflage Suit, Crystal Tiara, and of course Bucephalus, as these are the three standard crit pieces for these slots. Now for the arm piece of choice, Cathy actually has quite a few options for the arm piece, but in this build we'll be running with a radar, which gives you good attack speed as well as a ton of crit chance. Now here's where things get spicy. We're actually going to be using a Buccaneer doubloon. Now this is the new accessory that just got added this patch. It gives you attack power, crit chance, and lifesteal. These are the three stats that Cathy wants more than anything, so it fits this build like a glove. The only issue with Buccaneer Doubloon is that it's actually rather hard to build and it's going to be the last thing you end up finishing. So what I would recommend is that you run pretty much any accessory that you can find off of all the people you're definitely going to kill in zones 2 and 3, and you're going to be running those until you get the materials needed to finish your Buccaneer Doubloon. If you don't mind being greedy, you could potentially get another scrap metal over here in Hotel, you could get a hammer over here in Alley, and a box over here in Chapel to finish a magazine, but in general, I really think a Buccaneer Doubloon is just better. For this build, I would only recommend running it if you are one of the only few people spawning in Hotel. If it's you and one other person, you're in great shape. If there's more than two, you might want to consider running a different route because you do need 2 scrap metal and 2 piano wires, which can be hard to get if there's multiple people contesting the zone. Overall, this build is extremely strong and is pretty much every piece that I want to be building for a crit-based Cathy build. Now the next build we're going to talk about is a build that is a derivative of some older throw builds as well as some older bow builds. This build is currently very popular on Crit Sicella, so we're going to talk about it in the context of a dagger build. Once again, the weapon of choice is Vibroblade, and you're going to be using an Optical Camouflage Suit and a Bucephalus as your chest and shoes. Additionally, you're also going to be running radar just like the last build, but instead of the tiara, instead of the doubloon, you're going to be going with a motorcycle helmet and a Schrodinger's box. The main reason for this is that you're going to be finishing all three, your headpiece, your accessory, and your weapon between factory and chapel. This gives you a huge boost of max HP in the early game, as well as your weapon, so you can be very, very strong for these early fights over here in chapel. This build is sort of a cheese, and it doesn't scale extremely well into the late game, as motorcycle helmet and Schrodinger's box are not exactly best in slot for Cathy, but you can use this to accelerate yourself into a strong mastery position, as well as just give you an early advantage over the rest of the lobby. Fights very often break out over this teleporter right here, so you're going to want to get here as fast as possible, finish that Vibroblade. Even if you don't get the other two done, just make sure you get that weapon done so you're ready to fight over this teleporter over here in chapel. All in all, this build is quite fast and it finishes in exactly 4 zones, so if you want something that's fast, gives you that nice early power boost, then this is a really good build. Now this next build we're going to talk about is probably extremely familiar to you at this point. Yes, of course, we're talking about the Beach Dock Hospital 3-zone build rush that you've been seeing on Razi. You can see it on two-handed sword characters who are running Hovid. You can see it on Scythe. You can see it on Santa Muerte. There's so many different ways and so many different characters that you can run this exact same build route on. But now we're seeing it here with Vibroblade. For those who are new to this build who have never seen it before, it works like this. You're going to be starting in Beach, grabbing all the materials that you need here. You're going to then be TPing over here in Uptown to Dock, grabbing more materials, moving over to Chapel, and using the TP to get over to Hospital. You're going to be finishing the whole entirety of your build. This build comes together extremely fast. The only danger is that you do need 3 scrap metal at a dock, and right now that place is very contested with all these Cathys running around, so be careful in getting all the scrap. Keep in mind you can also get more scrap over in Hospital if you don't get all 3, but there is 9 in the zone, so you should be okay. As for the items in this build, the reason why this is kind of a cheese build is that it doesn't scale super well. You don't have a lot of attack speed, but you do have max HP on the headpiece, max HP on the accessory, and max HP on the arm piece. So you're super tanky very early in the game, and you do have a bunch of attack power as well as some crit chance as well. You can run down anyone near you once you finish all of your items, because I guarantee you pretty much no one else will have as much built as you. Overall, this build is a bit of an early game cheese, but it's good to have as a backup option in case your other zones are contested. And just because something is a cheese doesn't mean it can't scale well too. If you get the right pieces to transition into rarer items such as Frag-a-rack, such as Mithril Shield, this build is fantastic for getting you to that mid-game point where you can start farming for rare materials. Now, of course, the final build I want to talk about today is actually going to be this build right over here. It's a 4-zone build that starts in Hotel, goes to Avenue second, then Pond, and then Avenue. The thing about this build is that unlike the first one we talked about, this one runs sort of Shah Jahan instead of a radar. This build is actually extremely flexible, and if Avenue is very uncontested, you can start Hotel, you could even go Pond second, and then do a straight line up here to Avenue, get all 3 of these zones along the way. This build comes together extremely fast, and it puts you in a more tanky position in the early game compared to the first build we talked about, but it still has the right pieces to transition into a late game build where you have good damage accessories, damage headpiece, as well as the optical camouflage suit like usual, and the Bucephalus. This build has its pros and cons compared to that first build we talked about, but this one is more focused on getting your items really early, getting that Shah Jahan done, and making sure that you're able to brawl with that nice little boost of max HP. Overall, Shah Jahan versus Radar is really more of an opinion thing. It's more of a feel thing. If you like that tankiness better, then go with the Shah Jahan route over the Radar one. But if you like the Radar, then I would go with that one instead. Now, if you're interested in this build, there is actually an alternate route for doing this exact same build. And this is what it looks like. Instead of being a 4-zone, it's going to be sort of a pseudo 4-zone. You're going to be starting in Beach, going to Uptown where you just need to get that ribbon because you're already going to be getting the piano wire over here in Beach. So you just need the one item out of Uptown. From there, you can TP over to Dock, finish 3 items, the doubloon, the Shah Jahan, and the Vibroblade. Very, very strong items to have in the early game. From there, you can TP over to Hospital where you just need a couple more pieces, and then of course you go to Cemetery to finish up that Crystal Tiara. It's sort of like a hybrid between the Beach Rush build as well as the build we just talked about. Again, this is just an alternate route for that exact same build from over here going Hospital, Avenue, Pond, Alley, but instead it sticks to this side of the map instead. And that just about covers it for the builds for Cathy. In general, Cathy is played as a crit assassin. These are the stats that benefit her the most as she has a bunch of payoffs for dealing crit damage. Now, one thing that I need to talk about when it comes to Cathy's gear is that it's very important to learn how to transition into rare materials. Yes, sure, all 4 of these builds can do very well with just the gear that's in them, but if you don't know how to transition into, say, a Frag-a-rack or red shoes, you're gonna be severely limiting your chances in the late game. Frag-a-rack is the best in slot dagger for Cathy, and I would highly recommend learning how to craft it. It's just a force core plus a knife with a branch. It's a very simple recipe, and if you happen to get an early meteorite, you should be scoping out trees to try and finish that force core. Alternatively, you can try and get this off a bear, or if you kill Wickeline, you get a force core guaranteed every time. Speaking of killing Wickeline, if you do happen to kill Wick and you get that VF blood sample, or if you just happen to get it off of a bear at some point in the game, I would highly recommend using this VF blood sample to make red shoes. Red shoes are the other best in slot rare item for Cathy. I would highly recommend making red shoes if you get the chance to. It gives you attack power, it gives you crit chance, it gives you lifesteal. These are all stats that Cathy wants like none other, so again, this is a fantastic piece to transition your Bucephalus into if you happen to get that VF blood sample. Now, as for Cathy's skill order, I personally feel like there are multiple ways you can skill her, but the one I've settled on over time is R whenever available, passive over Q over W over E. The decision to level your W over your E is something that a lot of people are going to disagree on, and that's totally okay. I think both options are perfectly fine, but if you want more damage in your burst, I would highly recommend leveling your W over your E. If you want the utility of having your E off cooldown more often, you're probably going to want to put points in your E because the cooldown reduction per rank is quite significant. But for sure, your passive and your Q are huge sources of damage, especially your Q, so you're going to want to get those leveled up as soon as possible. And that just about covers it for Cathy. Let's check out an example game. Okay, with our weapon done, honestly, we could just be running at pretty much an enemy C. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, there's one. And here comes two. There we go. Oh, and one just TP'd in. There we go. There's three. Alright, with that we can get out of here. Honestly, we just want to move on to alley, get more of our stuff done. One thing you should know about this route in particular is that there's not a whole lot of branches in the top side of avenues, so if you want to be able to finish your weapon pretty quickly, pretty early, best case scenario, you want to be taking some branches out of a tell before you leave, if you have a spawn that puts you next to some branches. Just a little thing. So one issue is that since we fought so much, we actually kind of ran out of food. I'm gonna just kill a chicken, hopefully get some meat. Yep, there we go. And hopefully just use that to carry us through one fight, which we can maybe get some food off of to maybe get us more, you know. Yeah, you get the idea. But one burger should be enough for at least one fight. This liner can help us out too if we get towards the potatoes. Now we just need some glue and a stallion and we're in good shape. And the bears just spawn, so honestly, this is another good thing too. Once you're up here and around nighttime, you can start farming bears and wolves. It's a pretty good idea. Ooh, the early meteorite is actually huge. We can use that if we grab a tree to make an early frag rack as well, which is pretty huge for us. Nice. We're just gonna use the Schrodinger's box and just ignore the fact that we don't have a magazine. Magazine Schrodinger's box, they're pretty interchangeable. They're about the same thing. They give you max HP with a little bit of an extra stat. We don't really care much about the extra stat, so mainly just there for the max HP. Now my main goal is to use this meteorite to make a frag rack. That is absolutely my main goal at the moment. Also, since we're missing the stuff to finish our headpiece, just gonna sit on this as well. So as far as combos for this character goes, honestly, I'd highly recommend something along the lines of Q auto W. What that does is that resets most of the cooldown on your Q by getting them to 5 stacks pretty much instantly. So you can get 2 Qs pretty consistently at the beginning of a fight. Aside from that, you can also start with W and do W auto Q, but in general, I like using the Q for the gap closer. It's been pretty good for me so far. Now my goal is to go for this next tree, so I'm going to head over to forest next, after we finish the headpiece. But it should be coming up in about 0 seconds. And since we're not there right at the start of the day, I'm going to take my time actually, grab a few potatoes so we can make some big potatoes, in case we get there and it's still there. How's it looking? Yeah, it's already gone. Well, at least we can chase whoever got it. That does tell us basically for sure that there is somebody in forest. Or at least there was. Stones are missing here, so I'm guessing they're not down. Oh, we got pings. We just want to chase pings right now. We're really strong. We are really strong. Ah, went the other way. That's actually so unfortunate. I had the cameras and I didn't even place them down. Ah. Unfortunate. So we're actually out of food, so I'm going to use this time to make some baked potatoes. Because we definitely don't want to be caught without any food whatsoever. And we're just sort of stalling for third tree, because third tree should be showing up in about 40 seconds or so. Oh my god. Is that enough fish? Yeah, enough grilled chili and sea bass there. Holy. Okay, now the goal is to get a dagger and finish this frag rack. Frag rack is so huge for us, honestly, and getting it way before Wick even spawns is even better. Because it means we have it for the Wick fight, which is honestly huge. But we have to get to that point. And we're still, I mean, if Wick spawns in a minute and a half and we haven't gotten the frag rack yet, I mean, someone else could potentially steal it before we get the chance. Also, there's this fight that I might take right here, because honestly, it doesn't seem that strong. My ult is down. That is a consideration. But I think I can do it. Or not. Let's just go get the dagger. Honestly, I don't just get the frag rack done. Be ready for Wick. Okay, got our dagger. Got some cams too, pretty good. And I think we have just enough time that we can get back right before Wick spawns. I'm not seeing anyone nearby. We might actually go and just rush it. I'm gonna try. We have the frag rack advantage. I think it might be worth it just rush. Yeah, let's do it. Here we go. Things like that are generally super risky, and you should be really cautious about doing it. It's almost always not worth it. You kind of just want to stall Wick for a bit, see where she's going to go, wait till she's in a safe spot, see if anyone's trying to rush you, and then play it from there. But in that case, I don't know. I didn't see anybody. I thought it was just safe, and well, it turns out it was. And we do have this guy over here, though. But we should be able to corner and run him down. There we go. That's a really good pickup. That person was pretty well built. So now that we have the VF blood sample, my main goal is actually finishing red shoes, of all things. Big power advantage. So what we're gonna need is a little bit of glass, some slippers, which we can find both of those things here in Avenue. And then we're gonna need to get some scrap metal, probably from Dock or Hospital. Once we get our rare items online, we're pretty much unkillable. We're the strongest we're ever gonna be. Oh my god, there it is. Off of one of those first bodies from the beginning. I kind of forgot about that. Okay, well, I guess at this point all we need is the broken glass, so we just need to get some stones. And there's something happening over here. Probably just someone going for chickens, but it could be a fight, you never know. We're gonna have red shoes online, we're gonna have frag rack, and we got a ton of mastery. Like, I'm feeling really good right now. Oh, we got pings on wolves. I realized I dropped my cameras when I was crafting. I don't think I ever picked them back up again, so there goes all my cameras, especially against two characters that could potentially go stealth. Oh. Nice. Oh, they had the Queen of Hearts. Honestly, we don't even really want that though. Unless... I really don't think Queen does that much for us, but it's pretty damn good. But that extra crit from the optimal camo is also pretty good. We're currently at 83% crit chance. We'd go down to 59. We could potentially try swapping out the box for the doubloon? Yeah, that brings us back up to 68, but we lose a lot of max HP. This is an interesting way of transforming this build, but I'm kind of down to try it out. Let's see how our damage is. Oh. That did a lot of damage. I'm down just disengaging that because now she's just blown her ultimate. Oh, she had vision. Okay, I don't think she can quite catch us. She's gonna sniper kill us. We're gonna try and run as much as we can. Block vision, and we should be okay. Find a comfy place to sit, and we'll be fine. Her ult's down. We've got 4 gold items. I feel good. She stops for a second, she's dead. Yeah, there we go. Nice, nice, nice. Knew we could do it. And honestly, she just donated us a lot of food, so I feel great. Just have one Jackie to deal with. Oh, found her. There we go. And that's it. Yo. Easy 10.